just want to encourage your hearts and minds this morning, just for a little while. Something that happened for me last night. And when I woke up this morning, it was mind blowing that God would show me such a thing as what He showed me through a dream. And so I got up and I did my daily duty, and I couldn't shake. I couldn't shake what I had just had a dream of. And so I shared it with my wife, and I said, "Man, God, this is just amazing. The things that you will show us." And so what I'm gonna minister to you or give to you now is a little bit about prayer. Many know about prayer and know that prayer works, but many of us won't utilize the gifting of prayer. Many of us can see someone going through something or in the need of something, and we know that they need prayer, but instead of us praying for them, we would rather go tell somebody about what they're doing. But if you will understand that the Word says that the fervent, effectual prayers of the righteous availeth much. But if you won't open up your mouth and pray for those who are in need, you just as guilty as someone who doesn't follow Christ. You're just as guilty as someone who knows the way but won't follow the way. We're just as guilty. So on that note, I'm encouraging everyone here that if you see someone that's in a need of anything at all, if you see that they're going in error in any way that they should go, if you see that they're doing something that you think they shouldn't be doing, don't pick up the phone and call Jane and tell Jane about what Susie is doing. Don't pick up the phone and call John and tell John about what James is doing. But what I do encourage us all to do is to pray for that individual or that group of individuals. Because if we would just take for a moment and examine ourselves, we'll realize that each and every last one of us are jacked up somewhere, somehow. I'm not exempt from being jacked up. I'll be honest.
Come on now.
I pray to God all the time and say, "God, now, I don't know why you still desire to use me.
Come on now.
God, I try to be my best. I try to do my best. But somehow I get off track. I don't give up. And I keep pressing.
Yeah.
But I know that there's more that He's requiring of me, yet I don't give it my all." I'm just being honest. Now you can believe to yourself that you got it all together and that you don't need prayer and that you can just talk about somebody if you so desire, but for me, I'm not in that position. So today in public in front of everyone, I'm asking God to forgive me for the role that I played in doing this thing that I'm ministering unto you today.
Come on now.
I'm going to be coming from the book of James, chapter 5, starting at verse 16 through 20. And it talks about the power of prayer. Then I'm going to go right into what God showed me on last night. "And the prayer of faith shall save the sick, and the Lord shall rise him up. And if he have committed a sin, they shall be forgiven him. Confess your faults one to another, and pray for one another, that ye may be healed. The effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. Elias was a man subject to like passions as we are, and he prayed earnestly that it might not rain. And it rained not on the earth for the space of 3 years and 6 months. And he prayed again, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth brought forth her fruit. Brethren, if you do err from the truth, and one covereth him, let him know that he which has covered the sinner from the error of his way shall save his soul from death, and shall hide a multitude of sins." So on this week, I got some phone calls. I got a phone call on Wednesday night. And I didn't get the call because when I go home, I put my phone on silent. Because some people are very disrespectful and they will call you at wee hours of the night. Don't want anything at all, but they will call you anyways. So I've learned to put my phone on silent because I don't have time for foolishness. I'm at a point in my life now to where if you're not trying to help me, I'm considering you to be a person that wants to hurt me, so I don't want to be around you. I will pray for you, but I don't want to be around you. I'm at a season and time in my life right now where I don't need anybody that's coming in my life to be negative in my life.
Okay.
If a person is coming to my life, I'm desiring a person that will pray for me as I shall pray for others.
Praise Him.
So the other night when I got that phone call, it was around 10 something at night, and I didn't see it. I was sound asleep. But I woke up around 1 o'clock in the morning, and I saw the call, and I thought nothing about it. I said, well, you know, it's a phone call. It's just one call. It's an unusual call. And the time that it was called, I said, maybe it was a pocket dial, or you know, there was no message behind it. There was no text message, so I blew it off. So I got up the next morning, and I went about my daily business to go to the park and exercise. And as I was getting ready to get out of my truck to go exercise, I got a phone call that shook me. When I got this phone call, it was my sister, and she was saying that she was in the emergency room. She was in CCU, critical care unit. Now, I just told you about the power of prayer. But when I got that news, immediately I could not pray. I was stunned. What? You?
Yeah.
Black?
Yeah.
My sister? The one that I grew up with? The one that I was always around? You're in CCU? What's going on? It took the fight out of me to even go and want to exercise. So she began to share with me that, hey, last night I couldn't breathe. Wayne got me up to take me to the emergency room, but I was too weak to get dressed. So they had to get me dressed. And as they was walking me to the stairs, I fell out and I became unconscious. The ambulance was called, and when they came, I was unresponsive. I couldn't hear, I couldn't move, I couldn't do anything. From what was said was that when she got into the back of the ambulance, about 6 paramedics got in the back with her. They began to work on her to bring her back to life. She was lifeless. Just a blink of an eye of going from being happy, jittery, outgoing, outspoken, to not being able to move at all. I have no idea what's going on. So when she began to tell me these things, I immediately began to pray, and God took me back to where I had prayed beforehand.
All right.
The fact that she was allowed to talk to me that next morning was the prayer of the first effective prayer. What amazes me is that the night before you couldn't say a word, and now you're telling me your story. You talk about the fervent, effectual prayers of the righteous availeth much. That's the story. Not only that, did God bring her through on that night, but she was ready to leave that day to come home. You see why it's so important to intercede on somebody's behalf.
All right.
Because I could have easily looked at my sister's life and said, boy, she don't need no prayer. I'm going to call somebody and tell somebody about what she's doing.
Come on now.
But instead of calling somebody to tell somebody about what she's doing, I told her what she was doing. Said, sis, let's pray.
Yeah.
Because if I don't bring her into light, into what I think is darkness, then I'm just as much as in error. I can't see her going astray and say nothing about it.
All right.
But I must cry loud and spare not.
All right.
I wasn't concerned about her feelings and about what she would feel, because I have to be concerned more about my salvation and where I'm going. I have to be more concerned about what God has called me from and what He's calling me to. So if you tell me to say something, I'm not going to withhold any longer. See, I used to be afraid of what people would say. I used to didn't want to approach anybody because of the fear of rejection. But when I realized that he was rejected,
Come on.
I don't even matter no more. What I went through cannot compare to what he went through.
Come on, walk with it.
He died for us all, and yet he still was rejected.
All right.
But through it all, he kept going because he had us in his mind.
Thank you, God. Thank you.
So when my sister when I got that call, and she began to tell me that she was better and that she was on her way home, and well, not on her way home, but she wanted to come home. But they asked her, did you want to stay or do you want to go? She said, well, I'd just rather stay just so we can make sure that everything is all right. But you see how God worked in the midst of the midnight hours to revive someone, to let them know that, hey, all is well. She comes home on Thursday. I believe it was Thursday or Friday she came home. She called me, she said, hey bro, I'm on my way home, and I'm praising God, like, God, you brought my sister through. You kept me from pain, you kept me from sorrow.
Thank you, Lord.
Because that would have been devastating. But the minute that she got home, I got another phone call that my brother is on his way to the emergency room. He can't breathe. I immediately began to pray. I immediately began to intercede on his behalf. God, what is this that you're doing? What is this that you're showing us, your people? that one would come home and the other one would go. So he goes to the hospital, and I begin to pray for him, and he goes in, and I call him back about a few hours later, and I said, bro, I said, is everything okay? He says, the doctor told me that if I hadn't came when I came, I would have died.
My God.
We're talking about the fervent, effectual prayers of the righteous availing much. This is the story. So as he's in the hospital and the doctors examined him and they gave him some medicine, now they wanted to let him go home. When they just told him that he could have died if he didn't make it. And now he's at home doing well. Because of the fervent, effectual prayers of the righteous. So now let me share with you this dream that I had, and I'm going to take my seat, and whoever's batter up, you can get ready, because I don't plan to be much longer than this here. But on last night, I had this dream. And in my dream, it was my wife and I and my sister and a few other people, and we were over some water, and we was on a Ferris wheel, and it's like kind of like a carnival thing. And we're on this ride that's spinning us around and around and around we go. And as we're spinning on this ride, I decided that it's my time to get off of this ride. So I get off of the ride, and as I'm looking up on this ride, it's still going. And now not only is it going, but now it's starting to clash into other rides that are doing the same exact thing as it's doing. And as I began to look up at this ride, I began to see my sister and my wife both dangling over the water on this ride. And I couldn't understand, God, how is it that this ride was just going well and now it's falling apart and they're dangling. So they were able to escape. They unbuckled themselves and they fell into the water. And as they fell into the water, I began to look up, and I still see this wheel, and it's just going round and round and round with all these people on this Ferris wheel. And I began to think about this thing this morning, and what that was representing is that some have escaped, but some are still going in circles. God allowed us to escape the Ferris wheel, but He allowed others to keep going and going and going. If God has brought you off of something, don't try to go back into it again and again and again. So we leave from this situation of this carnival thing, and we go to a party, and at this party it was more like a gathering, and my sister and my wife and I, we're there, and Brother Junior begins to walk up from another place, and he says to me, hey, can you go to the store and get us some rice? I said, yeah, bro, I'll go. He says, well, we need a pallet of rice. Okay, bro, I'll go to the store and I get this pallet of rice. And as I begin to go to this store, I begin to drive down this street, and there was a truck in front of me, and there was a lady with a baby on the side of that. And as she began to walk, this car lets down the windows, he begins to shoot at this lady and this baby. I didn't understand it, so I turned off because I didn't want to be next, because apparently if they saw me see them do something they weren't supposed to do. So I began to leave there, and now it was dark, and then it became light, and as I began to walk into this pasture, it was kind of like acres, and there was a green fields around, and weren't many people, and I began to walk through this pasture, and it's beautiful outside, it's bright, it's sunny, it's gorgeous outside, and as I began to walk a little bit further, I walk into this castle. Or this mansion. I walk into this mansion. As I walk into this mansion, there again is my sister, my wife, me, my wife, and my sister. Again, we're walking into this mansion. And so when I get into this mansion, but when I first walk in, everything is all well outside. But when I close the door and I look out, there's an IED that exploded on the out by the road. And immediately when this IED exploded, I said, man, y'all seen that? And all of a sudden a war started breaking out. People from everywhere started coming out of nowhere, shooting all these guns, and it was an actual war that was going on. The moral of the story is, and what I got out of this dream was that there's a war going on around us, but we're walking through it as if we can't see it. It amazes me how God would allow us to walk outside and see how bright and sunny and gloomy or bright and sunny how it is, but there's a war going on, and He's keeping us from the visual of it. Until we got into safety, once we got into safety is when He revealed it. So as we're sitting there and we're watching this war, I'm like, my God, like there's an actual war going on. Then there become the missiles that started to flow over, and I saw these missiles coming up, and they're coming towards this mansion that we're at, and I'm thinking, man, this one's going over, but I'm looking at this one's going to hit. Now surely if this hits, it's going to destroy us. Well, it hit, and another one hit, and another one hit, and all they did was ricocheted off the building. So you got to understand that if you have on the whole armor of God, you will be able to withstand the fiery darts of the enemy.
All right.
But I didn't know, walking through that pasture, that there was a war going on the outside. Why? Because He has kept me yet again. For that alone, I am grateful that He would show me such a thing in the dream. That He's keeping me.
Yeah.
even when I can't see.
Yeah.
Because had he exposed me to what was going on around me, I would have turned around.
Yeah.
But he wanted to let me know that, yeah, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I should fear no evil.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm saying unto you on today, that no matter what you're going through,
Yeah.
no matter what it looks like,
Yes.
something else is worse off behind it. We just can't see it.
Thank you, Lord. Okay.
But trust him anyway.
Yeah.
Because when I was walking up there, I obviously, at this point in my dream, I must have had some type of faith. And someone must have had prayed for me. And the fervent, effectual prayers of that righteous person had kept me.
Yeah.
Because I walked through a war zone
Yeah.
and didn't even see it until I closed the door.
Thank you, Lord.